Hi and welcome. I recently came across a very interesting article about China and how China lacks diversity. Now, this is very interesting. In an estimate released by the United Nations, there were about 1 million migrants in mainland China, and that includes people from Hong Kong and Macau. That is just 0.07% of all the people in the country, which means that China comes last of any country in the world. And they mentioned the United States, where migrants make up 15.6% of the overall population. Now I'll have to stop right there. Why are they comparing to the US? Is this a competition? I don't think so. Where does it say that China has to take in more migrants? I mean, seriously, they have 1.3 billion people. They have more people than they need, in fact. They have problems with their environment. Their cities are overcrowded. There's not enough space. They also mention Saudi Arabia, which has the largest foreign born population, 37%. Now, the Saudis are very different from the Chinese because they don't work as hard. That's just a fact. They need to import a lot of labor. There are a lot of people who do hard work from places such as India and Pakistan. There are also quite a bit of people from European countries, for example, British expats, doctors, and other specialists. So they need to import labor. So it's logical why Saudi Arabia has a large foreign born population. China doesn't need that. The Chinese are very hardworking people. They have skills, they know how to run a good economy, they work very hard. So they really don't need to import any labor. In fact, they have an oversupply of labor. They go on to mention that there are a couple of reasons for China's low rates of immigration. First of all, the language barrier. Yeah, that's an obvious one. And then they also mention that China has very restrictive immigration policies. And this prevents people from countries from Africa and Southeast Asia to come into booming coastal Chinese cities where they can have helped the economy. Now, again, this is complete nonsense. The Chinese don't need any labor, they have plenty of Chinese labor themselves. In fact, I really doubt that Africans coming into China would work nearly as hard as Chinese. This makes absolutely no sense. The stated goal of the Chinese government is to promote economic development while at the same time maintaining social stability. Now, this to me seems completely rational. Isn't that what every country wants? Doesn't every country want social stability while at the same time promoting economic development? I think this is reasonable. Who says that the Chinese has to let in millions of migrants who probably don't want to integrate to the Chinese culture? It's completely absurd. It says that these goals have led China to discourage migrants who were not of Chinese ethnic origin and to only grant permanent status to people without Chinese ethnic backgrounds if they are important business or scientific leaders or have made outstanding contributions to China. Again, I don't see anything that is wrong with that. China is a sovereign country and they can make any decisions they want. They're not breaking international law, they're not doing anything inhumane to people. They just don't want to let in everybody into their country. Then they mentioned that China has benefited tremendously from people who have left China and gone to other countries because they have sent back millions of dollars. And they mentioned that in 2015, remittances to China accounted for 0.4% of the GDP. And sure, this is true, but it doesn't really change anything. So what if millions of Chinese have gone overseas? Other countries don't have to let Chinese people in. That is for every country to decide. Do they want Chinese immigrants? Do they want immigrants from other countries? Yes or no? I really don't see the problem here. In fact, I see a blame game going on. They are trying to make the Chinese feel a little bit guilty because you see, millions of Chinese people went overseas. They're working there and sending money back. Now, why isn't China doing the same thing? They should open up their own borders. And the article finishes with a comparison between China and Japan and South Korea, which also didn't let in that many migrants when they were in a rapid economic development. In fact, Japan and South Korea are still today not letting that many migrants into their countries. And it's the same thing. That's perfectly reasonable. If the Japanese don't want any migrants, that is their choice. Sure, they're mentioning also that these countries have an aging population, but that argument really doesn't hold because the UN and all of these other globalist agencies, they are always ignoring the cultural differences. How are millions of Africans supposed to integrate into the Chinese and Japanese societies? It's very difficult. It's a completely different culture, completely different language, different traditions. You can't just import millions of people and expect them to automatically be integrated into the society, automatically get a job and start being a productive citizen. It just doesn't happen. It takes time. And if you're talking about large number of migrants, like millions of migrants, you could have very serious problems. You could very easily see tensions rise between Muslims and Chinese, for example, which you have today already between the Uyghur population in Western China and ethnic Chinese. In fact, there are Muslim terrorists in Western China, and the Chinese are fighting these Uyghur warriors. That is something that is going on today. And if you let in millions of more Muslim migrants into China, this problem would probably grow. So the UN always ignores the cultural aspect and only focuses on a very narrow economic argument. What do you think? Leave a comment below. I've left a link to the article also below, so you can check that out for yourself. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe.